Hello everybody, today I'm going to be talking to you about the Cornus Florida, or the flowering dogwood. So I'm going to turn the camera here so that we can take a look a little bit closer at some of the specific characteristics of this tree, so that if you find one in the wild, you'll be able to possibly recognize it. Again, this is the Cornus Florida, or the flowering dogwood. The first thing we're going to look at on this tree is the bark, and the bark on this tree is very interesting and very characteristic of the flowering dogwood. That's because you get these real blocky scales. And so these will grow into these kind of little square scales as the tree matures. When it's younger, you'll have a smoother, grayer bark. You kind of see a little bit of what that would look like here, where some of those scales have fallen off or not formed yet. But again, it would be a smoother gray. As it grows, it turns this browner color and starts to develop these thicker, scaly kind of blocks. The other thing that you'll find a lot of times on this tree are these lichens, or these types of mosses. Again, these can grow on, of course, all kinds of trees, but it's pretty typical to find these on the flowering dogwoods, and we could see several examples of that here on this tree. Now, this tree does perform well, or prefer a well-drained soil, and it will typically grow in the southeast United States up to the northeastern United States. Past about the Ohio Valley, you're not going to find too many of these trees, unless, of course, they've been transplanted, but naturally these will grow more on the eastern side of the United States. Now, the form of this tree, it will typically grow anywhere from about 15 to 75 feet. This tree is a pretty good example of that. It's about I would say 25-foot tree, and they can grow to be about 15 feet to 30 feet wide or so. Now, as we move in to look at the leaf system on this tree, first thing I want to show you that is pretty stark difference on this. You'll see they're kind of a paler green on the bottom, but as I turn these over, you'll see they're a much darker red or maroon. And that's because we're in the fall season here. So that is pretty typical this time of year as they start to turn color. During the summer, these leaves would be a pale green on the bottom like this, and then just a darker green on the top. Speaking of the fall, they will start to fruit in the fall. We can just start to see a little bit of that here. They typically grow in clusters of about 3 to 5. There's 3. But these would be a real vibrant red, and they would not get much bigger than this, about 1/4 to 1/2 inch in length, the fruits, but they'll be a very vibrant red. So don't see a whole lot of this on this tree yet, as we're pretty early in the fall here, but as the fall moves in, you'll start to see more of those fruits appear. Now, the biggest thing with the dogwood is in the spring, they would have very vibrant white flowers that develop all over this tree, and that's the quickest way to identify a dogwood if you're able to find one sometime throughout the spring, is those real vibrant flowers. And those flowers will eventually fall off and cover the entire ground around the tree, and sometimes they can also be a pinkish color. White is definitely the most typical, but again, they can sometimes be pink. Now, moving back into the leaves here quickly, you'll see that the vein system kind of alternates as it goes up the leaves there. That's also typical of these dogwoods. And the twigs themselves will sometimes have a purple hue, or can be a greenish hue. But the purple hue is something that you can look for when trying to identify these trees. And they are a simple leaf system, so they do have just one leaf there coming off of each twig, or stem, I should say. So this is a great example of a flowering dogwood. Very beautiful tree, and again, if you're lucky enough to see the flowers in the spring, both very beautiful and a very quick way to identify this tree. So again, this is the flowering dogwood, or the Cornus Florida. Thank you.